अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाजरीन, मेरा नाम है असफ अबानी, मैं मैक्रो पाकिस्तानी का एडिटर इन चीफ हूँ। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर सेंडिंग इन योर क्वेश्चंस फॉर आस्क मैक्रो पाकिस्तानी। आज हम जो कुछ थीम्स कवर करेंगे आपके सवालात के जवाब देने के लिए, वो हैं सेविंग्स एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट, पाकिस्तान टोटल डेट और हमारी एग्रीकल्चरल इंडस्ट्री। सो फर्स्ट थिंग्स फर्स्ट, बहुत से सवाल आए थे पाकिस्तान के इन्वेस्टमेंट कहाँ जाती है उसके ताल्लुक। बहुत से लोगों ने रियल एस्टेट सेक्टर के बारे में बात की कि पाकिस्तानी रियल एस्टेट में कितना मनी इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, पीएसएक्स में इतना कितना इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, और क्रिप्टो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की भी बात हुई। तो इसको हम कुछ क्वांटिफाई करने की कोशिश करते हैं टू अंडरस्टैंड कि वेयर एग्जैक्टली पाकिस्तान इज गोइंग रॉन्ग इन टर्म्स ऑफ नॉट इनफ सेविंग्स एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट्स। तो सबसे पहले हम पाकिस्तान स्टॉक एक्सचेंज की बात करें, पीएसएक्स की। आर पीएसएक्स इज अनफॉर्चुनेटली टाइनी कंपेयर टू, अगर हम कोई भी रीजनल कंपेटिटर से कंपेयर करें। द टोटल नंबर ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स जो पीएसएक्स में है वो है सिर्फ 250,000 पीपल, 0.25 मिलियन पीपल, जबकि पाकिस्तान की आबादी एस्टिमेटेड ओवर 200 मिलियन लोग हैं। तो हमारे सिर्फ 0.25 मिलियन इन्वेस्टर्स हैं। अगर हम दूसरे कंट्री से कंपेयर करें, बांग्लादेश में 2.5 मिलियन इन्वेस्टर्स हैं। रिलेटिव टू पॉपुलेशन हमारे ये अराउंड 0.12% ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन है, जबकि इंडिया में 3.7% ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन इन्वेस्ट इन द स्टॉक मार्केट, और चाइना में इट्स 12.7%। ये आपको डिफरेंस मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन में भी नजर आता है, इन द सेंस दैट पीएसएक्स की जो मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन है, टोटल वैल्यू ऑफ कंपनीज, वो है $45 बिलियन, जबकि मुंबई स्टॉक एक्सचेंज जो है उसकी मार्केट कैप है $3,200 बिलियन। तो एक जमीन आसमान का फर्क आ रहा है। एंड दिस ऑल्सो गोज टू शो के टोटल नंबर ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है वो पीएसएक्स में बहुत कम है। अगर उसको आप कंपेयर करें हमारी जो रियल एस्टेट एसेट्स हैं उनकी वैल्यूएशन क्या है। ना ऑब्वियसली हमारी रियल एस्टेट इंडस्ट्री को मेजर करना, उसकी वैल्यू करना बहुत मुश्किल है, बिकॉज एज अ लॉट ऑफ कैश ट्रांजैक्शंस इन्वॉल्व, और बहुत से शायद इलिसिट फंड्स भी उसमें इन्वॉल्व हैं। उसके अलावा वैल्यूएशंस के भी एस्टिमेट्स वेरी करते हैं। डिस्पाइट दैट, अगर हम कुछ एस्टिमेट्स देखें तो जैसा पाकिस्तान इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इकोनॉमिक्स है, उनके एस्टिमेट से हमारी रियल एस्टेट एसेट्स की वैल्यू $400 बिलियन है। दैट्स अबाउट 10 टाइम्स मोर देन पीएसएक्स। जबकि प्रॉफिट मैगजीन कहता है कि ये उससे भी ज्यादा हो सकते हैं। उनके एस्टिमेट के मुताबिक our real estate assets are worth almost $1,200 billion. So in either case, we're putting in far more money into our real estate industry than we are into the PSX, जो एक productive तरीके से पैसे इस्तेमाल उसने, because that can actually go to companies that can further expand our economy. अगर हम क्रिप्टो की भी बात करें तो क्रिप्टो, even though it's a very new industry and again इसके सिर्फ rough estimates exist करते हैं, but yet industry experts estimate के PSX में जो 0.25 मिलियन लोग इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, उससे ज्यादा पाकिस्तानीज ने ऑलरेडी क्रिप्टो में इन्वेस्ट कर लिया है, even though the industry is barely even 10 years old. So we can see that PSX में we're not getting enough investment. Now why is that? Is it a cultural reason कि लोगों को enough knowledge नहीं है, या लोग को एक आइडिया है कि PSX में बहुत अनफेयर ट्रेडिंग मैकेनिज्म्स होते हैं, या बहुत पैसे लॉस हो सकते हैं। Maybe it's also regulations के until very recently जो state bank की regulations थे, उसके मुताबिक you had to have a lot of signatures in person and you couldn't easily open up an account as compared to, for example, अगर cryptocurrencies की बात करें, it's very easy to just download an app and start trading. Now there are also apps that exist for trading and investing in mutual funds, and I would recommend that people look into that as an option, because unme returns be over time as a savings mechanism are very solid. And uske alawa, it also kind of helps companies to tap into other funds to help them grow. Because a big problem with our real estate industry is that it ends up being speculative investment, and that money kind of ends up being trapped in the valuation of the plots of the land, and usse hamari wider economy ko itna benefit nahi ho sakta. So that's a big issue, that we don't get enough money in our stock exchange, which kind of affects our savings and investment climate overall. हम सेकंड सवाल की तरफ जाएं. There were some questions on Pakistan का total debt क्या है? Is Pakistan going bankrupt? Quite a few questions like that. तो सबसे पहले ये एक graphic आपके सामने आएगा as sources from dawn.com, which kind of shows कि पाकिस्तान का debt to GDP ratio क्या रहा है roughly over the last 10 years. You can see कि around 2012, 2013 में this debt to GDP ratio was 65%, जबकि now it's gone around 85% and it's going further upwards. Usme bhi domestic debt and external debt, it's important to differentiate between the two, because domestic debt wo hota hai jo our government owes to our own banks and through government bonds, and which is basically owed in Pakistani rupees. That is a bit easier to deal with as compared to external debt jo hota hai, which you owe to international agencies and other countries, for example, the World Bank or the IMF. Ye usually dollars ya foreign currencies mein denominated hota hai, and it's kind of difficult to not repay it. And it also then takes a toll on your balance of payments ya aapka jo current account hota hai, because you have to pay it back in dollars, which further increases the value of dollars as compared to your rupees. So it has been a bit alarming कि पाकिस्तान का debt to GDP ratio कितने time से increase हो रहा है. At the same time, most of Pakistan's valuations by international credit agencies are around B minus, which shows कि थोड़ी concern है. World Bank ने भी अपने report में कहा है कि there is some concern, but it's not like Pakistan as a state is going to go bankrupt anytime soon. Instead, इस debt की जो main worrying हमारे लिए जो चीज है वो है कि it means that we have to end up repaying a lot in interest payments. So firstly, most countries in the world have debt. That's okay. The thing is that they all have to then pay interest. जो आपका जो markup लगता है, आपका जो interest लगता है आपके debt पे, that you have to repay. And that you have to make sure कि आपकी जो interest payments है या आपकी market payments हैं, those aren't very difficult for you to pay, because ये आपके annual budget से निकलती हैं. So if that's taking up a lot of your money, then that doesn't leave much money for you to spend elsewhere. So ये असल मसला है हमारे debt का. And unfortunately, Pakistan में our interest payments are really rising. अगर हम कुछ numbers देखें तो हमारा जो annual revenue है, हमारा latest 2021-22 में जो हमारा budget था, हमारा जो estimated revenue, projected revenue था, that was 5.9 billion rupees. So nearly 6 billion rupees आप समझ लें. And इसमें हमारी interest payments जो हैं in our expenditures is 3 billion rupees. So basically हमारा जो half जो हमारा revenue है, that's essentially going towards interest payments. And this is by far our biggest expenditure in our budget. This is more than we spend on defense, more than we spend on any other industry. And of course, agar aapka half of your revenue is going towards your interest payments, then that doesn't leave a whole lot of money for you to then spend elsewhere. It also means कि फिर आपको और पैसे निकालने पड़ रहे हैं और borrow करना पड़ रहा है to be able to finance other budgetary priorities, which means in the future your interest payments or your markup payments are going to rise even more. So that's something where Pakistan is trapped a little bit. Obviously, the money that we are borrowing, we should ideally be spending in such a way कि future में हमारी GDP और ज़्यादा level पे grow हो, ताकि हम interest payments आसानी से repay कर सकें, and we're still able to spend on other things. But unfortunately, the money we're borrowing is not going towards such productive things, and we're still stuck in the same borrowing money to repay previous money to then borrow more money cycle, जिससे हमारा कुछ ज़्यादा benefit नहीं हो रहा. And the third question that we're going to deal with is हमारी जो agricultural industry है. There was a question कि can our economy grow without fixing our agricultural industry? And put simply, no. Our agricultural industry is a very, very big part of our overall economy. It's our largest employer. Around 40% of our labor force is employed in the agricultural industry. And it's also our second biggest export industry overall. Yet, despite the fact that हम predominantly agricultural society, agricultural economy hai, despite that, we're only able to export about $4.5 billion of food stuff a year. So that's very little. And in fact, we often even end up needing to import food. Like we've imported sugar in the past. Recently, over the past few years, हमने wheat भी import किए, often at very high prices. So despite the fact that we're such an agricultural economy, we often need to end up importing things and can't export enough. And part of the reason behind that is कि हमारी जो agriculture industry में productivity है is extremely low. अगर हम कुछ दुनिया के दूसरे ममालिक से compare करें, which have very good productivity rates, so wheat में, for example, compared to France, which has the world's best productivity, हमारी productivity is just 38% of what they're able to produce. Cotton में देखें तो China has the best productivity and we're able to produce just 52% per hectare जो China produce कर रही है. Sugar cane में again Egypt has the best productivity. We're producing 51% per hectare what Egypt is producing. Maize में compared to France, again we're producing 41% per hectare what they're producing, and rice may compared to the US, which has the highest productivity, we're only producing 29% per hectare what US is producing in terms of rice. Even agar hum regional labor se compare kare, such as India or Bangladesh, we're far behind them on our productivity metrics. This is obviously something that needs to be worked on. The government needs to give a lot more emphasis to it in terms of giving technical and financial assistance to our farmers so that they're able to invest in better seeds, in better crop machinery. Recently, हमने एक newsletter भी लिखा था talking about पाकिस्तान में जो substandard farm machinery होती है, उससे हमारे crops को इतना damage होता है. There are a lot of facets to this problem, but it's something that really requires a lot of importance because firstly, क्योंकि इतने ज़्यादा लोग employed हैं, तो if you help fix the industry, you're helping improve the take-home income of a lot of people in our country. Secondly, आप इससे exports भी boost कर सकते हैं, which will help with our overall current account deficit. But right now, we're far behind that. So our agriculture industry needs a lot of work. And lastly, कुछ सवालात भी थे about how can we get updated on understanding economic indicators and learning about the economy from scratch. So I would recommend कि आप हमारा glossary page check करें where we've explained a lot of basic economic terms and उनकी significance क्या होती है. इसके अलावा हमारे newsletter को भी subscribe करें either through email or WhatsApp. DM us if you need that information. And उन newsletters में we also link to other domestic and international publications which discuss the regional and wider economy. So thank you again for tuning in and see you on the next questions. Allah Hafiz.